Hello, everyone. I've got a pretty wild story to share with you today about a deadly house fire in Bethesda, Maryland back in 2017. With that being said, let's get right into it. Askia Kafra of Silver Spring died September 10th, 2017, when a fire broke out in a home in Bethesda, Maryland. Daniel Beckwith, 27, who lived at the home, was charged with depraved heart second degree murder and involuntary manslaughter for the man's death in April 2017 and was sentenced to 21 years in prison with 9 years of the sentence suspended because he acted with complete disregard for human life.
The Bethesda millionaire who forced a man to dig tunnels under his home is going to spend 9 years in prison. Daniel Beckwith was charged with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter back in April. Prosecutors say Beckwith kept Askia Kafra as a virtual slave, forcing him to build tunnels on his property. Kafra's body was found after a fire broke out in the home 2 years ago. Kafra's friends and family say the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Even though we got some sort of punishment for Daniel Beckwith, regardless of this, Askia Kafra, my best friend, he's no longer with us. And that's not going to change whether or not he got the max sentence or he was let off with a slight punishment or any of those things. The fact still remains that everybody here, myself, friends of mine, Askia's family, they're all affected by a very great loss.
Beckwith's lawyers say they plan to appeal the judge's decision. The millionaire killer left something dangerous behind in his old neighborhood. Now that he's been sentenced, neighbors want to know if he's going to take responsibility and have it cleaned up. We'll have that part of the story coming up at 6 o'clock.
Beckwith had hired Kafra to dig the tunnels. In the charging documents filed May 25th, 2017, Montgomery County Police cited dangerous hoarding conditions inside the home and said Beckwith was specifically aware of the increased likelihood of a fire breaking out, but he didn't take any steps to remove Kafra from the home. When the fire broke out, Beckwith was able to escape the flames and told firefighters there was someone else in the basement. It was there that fire investigators discovered Kafra's naked, charred body. Nearby, investigators found a hole in the basement's concrete floor, which led to an underground network of tunnels. Snaking down into the tunnels was a haphazard daisy chain of extension cords and plug extenders, which were apparently powering substantial electrical needs inside the tunnels, according to the documents. The setup created a substantial risk of fire, the documents stated. In the floors above, police described the hoarding conditions, including immense piles of garbage and discarded items strewn throughout the entire home, and narrow maze-like pathways, which made it difficult to both move within the home and to exit. The documents did not explain why the tunnels were dug, but investigators said Beckwith apparently engaged in a strange ruse to disguise the home's location from Kafra. The prosecution would later state that Beckwith had a paranoid fixation on a possible nuclear attack by North Korea. Beckwith's lawyer attempted to justify that by comparing his client's concern to the days of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Beckwith told police he would rent a car, pick Kafra up from his house in Silver Spring, then drive to Manassas. Once there, Beckwith had Kafra put on darkened blackout glasses that prevented Kafra from seeing where they were going. Beckwith then told Kafra he was taking him to an undisclosed location in Virginia, but instead drove Kafra for an hour in the opposite direction to Beckwith's home in Bethesda. Police said Beckwith only allowed Kafra to remove the glasses once he was in the house's basement. Kafra would work digging the tunnels for days at a time, according to the documents. More details about the unusual conditions inside the home in the quiet Maplewood neighborhood of Bethesda trickled out over time. Officials at first described hoarding conditions, the presence of chemicals, wiring, and excavation underneath the home. For months after the fire, the county and Daniel Beckwith and his father, David Beckwith, who owns the family home, were involved in a back-and-forth dispute over the conditions of the home. The county eventually filed a civil complaint, and in those documents, county officials stated the tunnels likely extended past the property line. The Beckwiths denied those claims and said the county had prevented them from accessing or repairing the property. Maryland prosecutors portrayed Beckwith as a paranoid computer hacker who recklessly endangered Kafra's life, and Kafra's parents claimed they tried to persuade their son to stay away from Beckwith's tunnels. Their son met Beckwith online and agreed to help him dig the tunnels in exchange for Beckwith's investments in an internet company Kafra was launching. Beckwith was resentenced, shortening his prior sentence of 21 years to 5 years in March 2022, and was ultimately released from prison and placed on probation in July of the same year. If Beckwith's contentions are accurate, then he is entitled to be released from probation on March 29th, 2027.
And we have an update to a story we first told you about back in 2017 when Askia Kafra, a 21-year-old man, was burned to death in a fire after he was hired to help build tunnels underneath a Bethesda home. That home belonged to Daniel Beckwith, who was originally sentenced to 9 years in prison. New today, he was resentenced to 5 years in prison. That's the maximum amount of time for the single charge in the state of Maryland. The reason is because he appealed the original sentencing and the appellate court dropped his second-degree murder charge. Today, he was brought back into the court, and the judge could resentence Beckwith just on the involuntary manslaughter. In addition to the 5 years of prison, he's on 5 years of supervised probation and also 250 hours of community service.
I remember seeing this on the news back in 2017. It stuck out to me because of how ridiculously sad and strange the story was. I hadn't followed up on it until now, and in hindsight, it's much more strange and tragic than I ever imagined. Hopefully, you found this story as interesting as I did, and maybe even learned something new in the process. Rest in peace, Askia Kafra. And as usual, if you're a fan of urban legends, folklore, unsolved mysteries, cold cases, and all things mysterious, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel.